It's January 21st, 2019, and it's time to review 5 of the most outrageous, infuriating, or just plain baffling things that have happened lately. It's your Facepalm 5. Let's count them up. Number 1, now it's the Trump-McConnell shutdown. We're a month into what is now the longest federal government shutdown in American history. Trump, who proudly accepted responsibility for the shutdown before it started, has been desperately trying to shift blame onto the Democrats. Meanwhile, Trump's fellow Republican, Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, has been hustling to get himself co-top billing for the shutdown. Well, maybe hustling isn't the right word. In fact, McConnell hasn't been doing much of anything lately, and that's the problem. The House of Representatives, now controlled by the Democrats, has already passed a bill to completely reopen the government. That bill might also pass the Senate, but so far McConnell has refused to allow it to come to a vote. McConnell's stated reason for blocking votes on a bill to reopen the government, which he has done twice as of this recording, is that it's a waste of time to pass a bill which the president will not sign, and Trump has insisted he will veto any bill to reopen the government that doesn't include funding for his useless border wall. But Congress doesn't need the president's signature to enact legislation. Sure, that's how it usually goes, but Congress has the power to override a presidential veto. It requires 2/3 majorities in the House and the Senate, which means it isn't likely under most circumstances, but it is a possibility. And that possibility means that Trump refusing to sign a bill to reopen the government is not necessarily the end of the issue. McConnell wants us to believe his blocking of votes to reopen the government is the move of a pragmatist who doesn't want to waste time on dead-end procedures. But I think the truth is, McConnell is using his position as Senate Majority Leader to block for the president. And the thing is, that's not his job. Trump caused this shutdown by demanding money for a border wall that wouldn't work even if the problem it's meant to solve actually existed, which it doesn't. This is a cynical act of political theater meant to galvanize Trump's racist, ignorant base, and it now belongs just as much to McConnell as to Trump, because despite what he says, McConnell has the power to at least make a good try at ending the shutdown, and he refuses to do so because he's too chicken shit to cross Donald Trump. And if you don't even have the ass to stand up to an intellectually and ethically vacant buffoon like Trump, you don't deserve a seat in the United States Senate, much less a position of leadership. Number 2, Pence family deeply offended by intolerance of intolerant Christian education. Last week, Karen Pence, the creepy wife of our creepy Vice President Mike Pence, announced she's accepted a part-time position teaching art at Emmanuel Christian School in Springfield, Virginia, about half an hour outside of Washington, D.C. Emmanuel Christian School doesn't allow gay or transgender people to be students, parents of students, or employees. So that's interesting. Parents of prospective students have to sign an agreement that requires them to affirm the usual conservative Christian stuff about God, Christ, salvation, the infallibility of the Bible, but it also requires parents to agree that participating in, supporting, or condoning sexual immorality, homosexual activity, or bisexual activity, and promoting such practices are grounds for refusing admission. They must also affirm their belief that marriage can only be between one man and one woman. Employees of the school must sign a similar agreement, which also explicitly forbids them from practicing polygamy or having a transgender identity. So to hell with this school, to hell with people who send their kids there, and to hell with Mike and Karen Pence. Of course, when people objected to the wife of the Vice President of the United States going to work for an openly anti-LGBTQ organization, other than the Trump administration, I mean, Mike Pence went on the defensive. During an interview on the Catholic TV network EWTN, Pence said that he and his wife find major news organizations attacking Christian education to be deeply offensive. Y'all mind if I just talk to Mike for this next bit? I know he watches. It'll just take a second. Mike, I've read and listened to a lot of the objections people are making to Karen going to work for that school, and I gotta say, I don't really hear people objecting to Christian education. That's not the issue. The issue is with the ignorance and intolerance represented by the policies of that school. If you can't help but conflate anti-LGBTQ bigotry with Christian education, that's your problem. But it ain't the Christian bit that people are getting upset about. So let's just drop that dishonest, self-serving, victim-playing bullshit right now, shall we? You want people to be more tolerant and accepting of your religious beliefs? Pick a less hateful version of your religion. Number 3, manly men lose it over a razor ad. If there's anything mature, stable, confident men hate, it's the suggestion that we consider being better people. Don't bully and harass people. How the fuck are you gonna tell me that? I never do that. I should kick your fucking ass for even saying that to me! What? I'm proving what point? Last week, Gillette released an ad that put a new spin on its classic tagline, "The best a man can get." The ad acknowledges the Me Too movement in a positive way and encourages men to take responsibility for how they treat other people, particularly women, and to be mindful of the example they're setting for their children, particularly the little boys who will grow up into the next generation of men. An ad executive at Gillette's parent company, Procter & Gamble, said of the ad, "By holding each other accountable, eliminating excuses for bad behavior, and supporting a new generation working toward their personal best, we can help create positive change that will matter for years to come." If we can look past the fact that it's all ultimately being done to sell razors and shaving cream, I think this is pretty great. I would much rather corporations market to us by calling us to be our best selves than by pandering to our basest instincts. And if a commercial for a razor company encourages some men to take a look at ourselves and change our attitudes and behaviors for the better, that's awesome. But not everyone thinks so. For instance, former Oscar nominee and current frothing right-wing asshole James Woods, who tweeted that the ad was part of a "Men Are Horrible" campaign. Or all-purpose clueless dipshit Piers Morgan, who complained of the ad's virtue-signaling PC guff and assault on masculinity. Or this random shithead who joined the others in declaring he would never use Gillette products again because of how it dares to spit on masculinity. Notice who is equating sexual misconduct, bullying, and misogyny with masculinity here. It's not the Gillette ad, which merely acknowledges the undeniable fact that lots of men do those things and exhibit those attitudes and challenges them to be better. It's macho assholes like Woods, or wannabe macho in Piers Morgan's case, who see a critique of harassment, abuse, and sexism as an assault on masculinity, which kind of proves the point of the ad, right? It proves the point. Hey, you know I was kidding earlier, right? What do you mean you don't know? Number 4, Republicans finally forced to acknowledge Steve King's obvious racism. Iowa Congressman Steve King is a racist. He's said racist things, supported racist people, and promoted racist policies so often that his Wikipedia entry has a subsection devoted to how racist he is. Something even most other Republican politicians can't say. And when you're racist even for a Republican, son, you're racist. In the New York Times the week before last, King was quoted as asking white nationalist, white supremacist, Western civilization, how did that language become offensive? First of all, thanks for confirming that when people like you use the term Western civilization, it's code for white supremacy. Second of all, no matter how racist you are, you get why people who try not to be racist have a problem with white supremacy, right? It's the discrimination, the oppression, the violence, the terrorism, the death. Why are you pretending like it's some kind of a mystery? White supremacy? That sounds good to me. Why is everybody saying it like it's a bad thing? King is also quoted in the Times article asking, "Why did I sit in classes teaching me about the merits of our history and our civilization?" Which is as stinging an indictment of the failures of our public education system as any sentence I've ever heard. Attempting to appease his fellow members of Congress, including some in his own party who expressed concern or offense over what he said to the Times, King gave a speech on the floor of the House of Representatives in which he said he regretted the heartburn caused by his remarks and went on to assure everyone that he was not a white nationalist, that he rejects that ideology, and that he's not anti-immigrant, he's just a defender of American civilization. Right. And it was that same concern for American civilization that compelled him to tweet not quite 2 years ago that we can't restore our civilization with somebody else's babies, and to wonder out loud, just last year, what does this diversity bring that we don't already have? Yeah, how could anybody think that guy, who has also endorsed white supremacist political candidates and in turn attracted the enthusiastic support of white supremacist leaders like David Duke, is racist? I feel like there's another prominent Republican who's pretty racist. Who am I trying to think of? Oh yeah, he's the subject of our next segment, the one devoted to some of the other things Donald Trump has done recently to disgrace the presidency and embarrass and/or endanger the United States and the rest of the world. It's number 5. The further misadventures of Lord Dampnut. Please keep in mind, as always, the following is not a complete list. He announced that he has ordered FEMA to withhold further funding from California because the forest fires that have raged across the state are the result of poor forest management. I'm sure having less money will really help with that, assuming what Trump's saying is true, which it isn't. He walked out of a meeting with congressional Democrats after they again refused to fund his border wall, declaring it a total waste of time. He declared that most drugs don't flow through, quote, portals, but rather across regions of the border between checkpoints, a claim which his own administration's Customs and Border Protection Agency refutes. The truth is, the overwhelming majority of drugs that are smuggled into this country pass through official ports of entry. He tweeted a quote from an anonymous rancher near the U.S.-Mexico border who told the Washington Examiner, "We found prayer rugs out here," adding himself, "People coming across the southern border from many countries, some of which would be a big surprise." So let's break this down because something doesn't make sense. First of all, the Examiner story Trump is citing there is transparent xenophobic fear-mongering. The claim that people are finding prayer rugs near the border is one that right-wingers have been making for years. It has never been substantiated. In fact, the rancher quoted in the Examiner story admits in a video embedded with the article that she's never personally seen people she thought were from the Middle East crossing the border and has no evidence to back up the claim. Secondly, let's assume people are finding prayer rugs near the border. Let's assume people who practice Islam are crossing the border into the United States. Let's assume those people are originally from the Middle East. So what? It's only a cause for concern if you assume that anyone from the Middle East is automatically more of a threat than someone from somewhere else. But to assume that sort of thing, you'd have to be a racist shithead like those who support Donald Trump. So you know what? Never mind. It makes perfect sense. In retaliation for Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi postponing the State of the Union address, Trump canceled the military aircraft that was to fly Pelosi and other members of Congress to meet with military leaders in Brussels and Afghanistan, a trip Trump dismissed as a public relations event that was unjustified given the government shutdown. Unlike Trump's visit to American troops in Iraq on Christmas, which was also during the shutdown and not only a public relations event, but turned into a political event by Trump, who spoke to the assembled troops as though they were an audience at one of his campaign rallies. He served fast food to the college football national champions, the Clemson Tigers, explaining that most of the White House staff had been furloughed due to the shutdown, so he ordered hundreds of burgers from McDonald's, Wendy's, and Burger King and paid for it all himself. So, okay, a couple of thoughts. First, why are people still accepting invitations to the White House while Trump is president? To hell with you, Clemson Tigers. I didn't need another reason to not like football, but I've got one now. When Trump invites you to the White House for any reason, the correct answer is no. Though, fuck no, not even if you paid me, lose my number, you fascist piece of shit, would also be acceptable. Second, I don't mean to disrespect the various fast food joints out there. I myself have dined on fast food many a night. In fact, even though I've been a vegetarian now for about 3 years, I will still occasionally patronize my local Burger King. I recommend the Veggie Burger, which is an actual thing they have on the menu. I like it. But Trump's whole reason behind ordering a bunch of fast food for the national champions was that the White House kitchen staff was furloughed as a result of the shutdown, for which Trump himself is largely responsible. So that being the case, why couldn't Trump have sprung for some nicer food for these guys and paid for that out of his own pocket? Again, I'm not a food snob. I have gone through more drive-through windows than I can count in my life. But if I go out to a cinema, I don't want to watch the movie on a 19-inch TV. And if I go to the White House for dinner, I don't want to eat at a goddamn burger buffet. And by the way, Can you imagine if Barack Obama had served the national champions fast food burgers while he was president? Sean Hannity would still be complaining about it. And finally, last week, BuzzFeed News reported that Trump directed his then lawyer Michael Cohen to lie to Congress about negotiations to build a Trump Tower in Moscow, which were taking place at the same time Trump was publicly insisting he had no business deals in Russia. Since the BuzzFeed story was published, the special counsel's office has disputed it, saying BuzzFeed's descriptions of specific statements to the special counsel's office and characterization of documents and testimony obtained are not accurate. BuzzFeed, for its part, has stood by its story as of the time of this recording. If true, this is what is technically known as an impeachable offense. But it wouldn't be the first one of those Trump has racked up, and so far there has been no serious move to impeach him. And even if he were to be impeached by the democratically controlled House of Representatives, he would still need to be convicted by the Senate before he's removed from office, and the Republicans still control the Senate, so that's not going to happen. Like I said earlier, the Republicans are so determined to protect Trump above all else, they might as well cut to the chase and enlist in the Secret Service. That's 5. Speak out, act out, resist, look after each other. Hey folks, hope you got something out of that one. If you did, please click like, share the video, subscribe to the channel if you're not subbed already, and also please consider helping me to make more videos like this one and all the videos I make on this channel by supporting this channel with a monthly donation through Patreon. You can go to patreon.com/Steve Shives to become a patron for as little as $1 a month. And believe me, those $1 a month pledges really add up and help me out a bunch. But if you can afford it and you think I'm worth it, and you pledge at a level of $5 a month or more, you get yourself a shout out at the end of the Facepalm 5, just like these fine folks, my newest $5 or more per month patrons. Stevie Twin, thank you, Stevie. Marla Irwin, thank you, Marla. Daniel Zafer Joyce, thank you, Daniel. Caroline Clark, thank you, Caroline. Sabri Zane, thank you, Sabri. Dave Weston, thank you, Dave. And School of Hard Thoughts, thank you, School of Hard Thoughts. Thanks to all of you for watching. Thanks to all of you for your support in whatever form it takes, whether you're patrons or not. I appreciate it, and I'll see you next time.